Hi kids, it's Mrs. Fravel. How are you? Good, I hope you're fine. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. Okay, we're going to continue on exploring what is behind Duchenne and Becker's muscular dystrophy. So this has been quite a journey talking about this disorder and the causes of it, the results of it, and now we're going to take one last look at figuring out where it comes from. How did the boys in the video get that disorder, and why was it mostly boys? Okay, so last week we talked about meiosis, and then last time we talked about alleles, and kind of looking at both the inheritance of traits and also how there can be excuse me, different forms of a gene that can code for slightly different variations in a trait. For instance, hair color, eye color, nose shape, all of those things. I got my dad's giant nose. My mom's got a very small, pretty nose that my brother got from her. It's not making me happy. Anyway, so today we're going to look at, is there a way that just one sex could get or show a trait? Okay, so first though, before we do that, let's just do a quick review. So again, complete dominance is what we talked about last time. This is also called Mendelian genetics. Excuse me, my goodness. The pollen in the air is really not helping Fravel not be a dork when she records videos. It's always something with me. I'm going to cough, so I'm going to pause it. Oh, excuse me, one moment. Yep, I'm always awesome. Still awesome. Anyway, so complete dominance or Mendelian genetics is named after the gentleman who discovered this tendency for traits to be passed through family lines. How there are two discrete traits. You either have the one form of a gene or another form of a gene. So in this picture, looking at the gene for flower color, you might have a red gene or a red allele, sorry, or a white allele for your petal color gene. And when those two are crossed, if the red one is the dominant one, you're going to see all of the offspring from that cross will be dominant. But if you go through generations, those recessive genes can pop back up depending on what the second generation got. If you have heterozygous individuals, they have one dominant gene and one recessive gene, they're going to show the dominant trait, but that recessive trait still gets passed on. It just depends on how individuals mate, what their allele distribution is. Okay, but that's not all there is. So again, this is 9th grade biology. We're teaching you genetics very, very simplified. It is so much more complicated for real. So very complicated. So I'm just going to cover a couple of other ways that traits can appear as they get passed on and how traits can blend and blend or butt up against each other. And then we're going to look at how some specific traits are carried on specific chromosomes. Okay, so non-Mendelian genetics, not all alleles follow the complete dominance rules. We can get blending of trait variations, and we can also get competing or competition of trait variation. So we can get kind of in between appearance in phenotype. Remember, genotype is, yes, the genes or the allele combination you actually have on your DNA. Phenotype is what? Yes, what your genotype looks like when it's expressed in your cells. Okay, so there's incomplete dominance. In this case, we get alleles blending. They both have kind of like the same activation response. So they're both going to be expressed during protein synthesis. And what that looks like is it actually blends both of them together. So in this instance, we get a red allele mating with a white allele. And in this case, the red and the white are incompletely dominant. So they're both going to express and they're going to blend that color together. So their heterozygous offspring are going to be pink. That is a blend of those two colors, okay? So blended in between color or blended incomplete trait is incomplete dominance. In humans, sometimes that can look like a height difference. That would be like an easy thing to see. If you have a tall parent and a short parent and you get medium kids, maybe that's an incompletely dominant trait, okay? Does that make sense? Great. Another example in humans is hair texture. So most people either have curly hair, straight hair, or wavy hair. And how do those come about? So curly hair is one allele you can have for hair texture. Straight hair is the other allele that you can have for hair texture. That's it. There's no wavy hair allele. What happens is when you have heterozygous individuals for hair texture, when you get one straight allele and one curly allele, you're going to get those two alleles both coding and both being expressed. So you end up with wavy hair in between being tightly curled and straight, okay? So that's incomplete dominance. The other situation that can happen is we get codominance, where it's two alleles duking it out, and they're both going to show, but they're not going to mix. They don't blend. They just both show. And a lot of times in things like skin color and hair color, this looks like spots and stripes. So you can see both of the parental colors in the offspring. So for instance, if I've got a homozygous red fish breeding with a homozygous blue fish, but those color genes are codominant, some of their offspring or all of their offspring are going to be heterozygous, and they're going to be blue and red spotted or blue and red striped. Okay. This happens as well. Oh, I thought I fixed that. Sorry. This happens as well in animals like horses and cows that have codominant alleles for coat color. There's a white allele, and then there's a blue allele, and there's also a red allele. And if you get a heterozygous individual that has the white allele and one of the other colors, both the white and the color will code. So they actually end up getting like alternating hairs in one of the colors. So they'll have white hair, blue hair, white hair, blue hair, white hair, blue hair. And when you get those millions of hairs together on their coat, they have kind of this misty coloration. They're not blue, they're not red, they're not white, they're misty colored, and we call that roan. And the interesting part is when a roan animal gets a scrape or a cut, when that scrape or cut heals, the scar will very often only express one color, okay? So you get this beautiful blue roan horse that's got some darker blue spots where he got maybe scritched up by a fence. And same here with this red roan, okay? Okay, so again, codominance and incomplete dominance are just a little bit different. Incomplete dominance, the two separate traits blend into a third trait. In codominance, the two traits both show separately. They're just going to both be there. Okay, ignore that. All right, so let's take a look at a few other situations. Is this a case of incomplete or codominance? Copyright Jeopardy. That's right, this is codominant. You look at these petals, some of them are pink, some of them are white, but they don't blend for a lighter pink. They both show with these red and white patched petals. Okay? What about this flower? If we have a red parent and a white parent and their offspring are pink, is that petal color incomplete or codominant? Incomplete, because it's a blended color. Okay, good. What about this flower? I like flowers today. Is this incomplete or codominant? We've got these white petals with red spots. Yes, codominant. Both traits are showing. And snakes. You know Fravel loves the snakes. She also teaches zoology. So if we've got this mom snake and this dad snake, the mom's got some patches, some spotted scale patterns, and the father's just got this kind of smoothly colored one. And then we get the baby, she's got spots down her back, but her sides are smoothly colored. And I'm sorry, snake people, Right now I'm not thinking about snakes, so I don't remember what those coat variations are called. Anyway, incomplete or codominant, kids? Yeah, codominant, because they're both showing. He's got spots and the nice, pretty, silky, smooth color. Okay, good. And then one more. Cow? I think one more. I don't know. I'll just keep clicking. We've got a white dad. Look how handsome he is. And a red mom. And babies have white coats with red spots. Yeah, codominant. Both traits are showing on that baby. Okay, got it? Have I hammered that enough? Great. Okay, so there is one other type of inheritance that we need to look at. And ding, 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 this is where you really need to pay attention when it comes to thinking about DMD. Just a blatant hint right there, okay? So you have 23 pairs of chromosomes in your body, in all of your cells as a human. 22 of those pairs are chromosomes that are called autosomal, and they code for all of your traits. They code for everything that you look like. There's one pair, your 23rd pair of chromosomes, that are called your sex chromosomes, and they code for several traits. What they're special for is that they code for sex traits. So male and female reproductive traits and secondary sex characteristics. Take health class. So in humans and in most mammals, but not all, if an individual has 2 X chromosomes, they are a female. If they have 1 X chromosome and a Y chromosome in that 23rd pair, they are a male. Disclaimer, it is way more complex than this. It is much, much more complicated than this, even in humans. And having this genetic chromosomal state does not make you female or male in the aspect of gender. Sex and gender are different, okay? And also there are a lot of situations where there are some non-disjunction problems where you end up with 2 X's and a Y, or you get 3 X's, or you get fragile X. And those situations with the sex chromosomes can result in kind of this spectrum of expression in sexuality and gender. That is not what we are here to talk about. This is a simplified 9th grade biology class, so we're going to talk about how alleles are passed on X chromosomes and Y chromosomes. That's all, okay? So so let's just make sure everybody's clear on this. So if you're a female, you have 2 X chromosomes. You got 1 X from your mom. You got your other X from your dad. He got his X chromosome from his mom. So you have your grandmother's X chromosome. That's kind of sweet. Male humans, you got your X chromosome from your mom, and you got your Y chromosome from your dad. The end. Okay? So you got your Y chromosome from your father. Okay, let's talk about who influences what sex a baby is. Punnett square, when we use one of those handy tools for determining how chromosomes and genes are passed on. Now we've done Punnett squares for alleles, right? Today we're going to do Punnett squares just for a whole chromosome and the alleles carried on the X chromosome and Y chromosome, okay? So just so we know what's going on, who determines the sex of a baby? So a female can only contribute an X chromosome to her gametes. That's it. A male can contribute either an X chromosome or a Y chromosome to his gametes. So when they fertilize to make a zygote, there is a 50-50 chance that any given zygote as a result of fertilization will be male or female. It's 50-50 every time. And the parent that determines that is, of course, the father. Because the mother can only give X chromosomes, the father will determine whether it's a boy or a girl. And gender reveal parties need to go away. Okay, so fathers determine the gender, and any given offspring has a 50% chance of being male or female. Okay, all right. Let's talk about how those chromosomes, what alleles do those carry? Okay, so again, the X chromosome is full of genes that code for female sexual structures and secondary sex characteristics. Take health. Male, the Y chromosome doesn't have a lot of discrete alleles on it for general body traits. The X does. The Y chromosome is really just there to make a body have male sex characteristics. That's it. It's much shorter than the X chromosome, and it just kind of overrides or adds to, I think it adds to the sex characteristics to make them male instead of female in this simplified perfect world, right? Not perfect, simplified world. Okay. So there are other traits on the X chromosome, and sometimes they can have alleles that are mutations or are problematic. Most of those problematic traits or variations are recessive. So if it's a recessive variation that causes a disease or causes a problem, how many of those recessive alleles would a female need to have in order to show that problem trait? 1 or 2? Yes, she needs 2. She'd have to inherit both of those recessive genes from her parents on both of her X chromosomes, one from her mom, one from her dad. That's pretty rare. Because many times the health problems caused by those alleles prohibit reproduction. Okay, not all of them, but some of them do. And there are a lot of things, like one of the things that's passed along you'll do on the worksheet that's on sex-linked is color blindness and also male pattern baldness. So those are generally not prohibitive to reproduction, so they keep getting passed along. But there are others that do, and not many women show male pattern baldness, but there are a few that do show up. My mother-in-law is one of them. Okay? And then for a male, how many of those recessive X alleles does he need to inherit to show that problematic or that mutated trait? Just 1. Oh, that didn't click, right? He only needs 1 copy of that allele in order to show that trait. So if you are a male who inherited the recessive gene on your X chromosome for male pattern baldness, you're gonna go bald. Sorry. You don't always get it from your mom. Anyway, yes, a male only needs 1 copy of that chromosome. I'm fine. It's almost 3 o'clock. I'm gonna go home soon. It's fine. Okay. Woo. Let's look at how those sex-linked traits are passed through and inherited, okay? And again, that Punnett square tool is the easiest way to do, but we have to write those alleles a little differently when we're showing an X-linked trait. We don't just do the allele letter, we have to do the chromosome and the allele letter. So we use what's called a superscript. So we write the letter for the chromosome, so the X chromosome, and then we write the letter for the allele, and the dominant form is this capital B that's up to the right. That's called a superscript. So X big B is the dominant form for that trait. X little b is the recessive form for that trait. Y is just Y. Y doesn't pass on these alleles that we're talking about. It's just Y. That's it. Okay. So genotypes and phenotypes, when you have an allele, a recessive allele, problematic or not, when it's being passed through on an X chromosome, it's going to show up differently whether you are a male or a female, depending on if you're male or female. So if your genotype for this, whatever trait this B is, if your genotype is heterozygous dominant, so that means you have the dominant allele on both of your X chromosomes, that just means that you are a normal female for that trait, whatever that trait is, that one trait that gets coded for by that B gene, okay? Okay. If you are a female who is heterozygous for that allele, we write it X big B, X little b, and you are a normal female for that trait, but you carry the recessive version as well. It just isn't coding because the dominant one is overshadowing it, right? Okay. If you are X little b, then you are a female that has that trait. You show that trait. You're a female with male pattern baldness, whereas in the heterozygous female, X big B, X little b, you don't show the male pattern baldness, but you can pass it on to your sons and daughters, okay? X big B, Y, so that's a male who is normal for that trait. He just has the dominant form of it. The dominant form is not the problematic one, so he's fine. But if you have a male who inherits that recessive trait from his mom, remember he gets his X chromosome from his mom, he's going to express that recessive gene. That recessive trait will show in that male. And just depending on what exactly that trait's manifestation is in the phenotype, that's where we can run into sex-linked or X-linked disorders, where you see a problematic health condition that only affects the males for the most part in a family, and not all of them. It affects like half of them. Interesting. Okay, so for instance, if we take this practice problem, if we have fruit flies. Fruit flies are those tiny little annoying flies that sometimes buzz around your house if you have ripe fruit on the counter. Okay, so fruit flies have, their normal eye color is red. That's their dominant eye color. They also can have white eyes. That's the recessive form of their eye color gene. So big R is red, little r is white on that allele, and it is linked on the X chromosome. So what are the offspring's eye color probabilities if we cross a heterozygous female that has red eyes with a male that has red eyes? Red is the dominant one. The female is carrying that white-eyed allele. Are any of their offspring going to have white eyes? So, or is there a chance that any of their offspring could have white eyes? So let's take a look. If we cross them, again, big R is red, little r is white eyes, carried on the X chromosome. Y chromosomes don't carry anything. So if we have X big R, that first probability chance is a female with red eyes. No problem. The next one, X big R, X little r, that is a female. What color eyes does she have? She has red eyes too, right? But she is heterozygous, so she's going to carry that white eye gene just like her mom. And then we have this opportunity down here. We have X big R, Y. What gender or what sex is that? Male. Red eyes or white eyes? Red. Red-eyed male. What about this guy? So he's got the X chromosome with the recessive white eye color gene, and his other chromosome is a Y, so that's not going to overshadow that recessive gene at all. So what color are his eyes? They're white. Okay. So two red-eyed parents can have a white-eyed offspring male if the female parent is heterozygous for the trait. If she's got that recessive allele hiding out in one of her X chromosomes, okay? She's called a carrier or heterozygous, okay? So none of the females will have red eyes, but there is a 50% chance that the male offspring will have white eyes, okay? If you weren't listening to that, I want you to think about that for a minute. Just think about it for just a sec. Go ahead and pause me if you need to. See if you can come up with any connections, any conclusions. Are you back? Great. Let's connect it. Let's connect it to DMD. So we, in the original phenomenon video, we watched this video of the day in a life of some boys who are affected with a disorder called Duchenne's or Becker's muscular dystrophy. And we saw the effects on their body, and we talked about how that all works. We've gone from DNA to protein, and now we're going to look at the inheritance. How do they inherit it, and why is it boys? What do you think? Can you explain that after what we talked about last week with inheritance of alleles, and then what we talked about today, specifically with sex-linked, okay? Just a few notes. So what chromosome do you think the gene for dystrophin might be on? Again, the kids in the video, A, were all kids. B, were mostly, for the most part, boys, right? Why weren't there any girls, do you think? What chromosome do you think that could be on? Any ideas? Okay. How does having, so I'll go back. It does end up that the mutated form of the DMD gene is a recessive gene located on the X chromosome. So it is passed through the mother, and it generally only shows in boys because they only need one recessive gene on their X chromosome to show the recessive trait. So they get the mutated form, and then they don't build dystrophin correctly. So we've brought it all around, and one of your assignments this week is going to be to explain that to me. And don't forget, your test is next week. So I hope all of this is really connecting for you, okay? Okay. Yeah, there we go. Remember, you need to be able to explain it, DNA to mRNA to protein, what's going on. Okay. If you have any questions, if you're having trouble with this, let me know. Email me or hit me on the Google Meet, okay? Okay, your assignment today, there are some worksheets. Unit 8, Lesson 6, Explore. You're just going to practice some codominance, incomplete dominance, and especially practice those sex-linked trait stuff. That's due on Wednesday, okay? Okay, that's all for me. Have a great day. Have a beautiful week, and be good, be safe, be kind. Bye.